Hello, my name is Ian Fraze, and today we're going to learn about a global crisis which isn't about the economy, but is instead on the ever-increasing price of food. A problem that is having a minimal effect here, especially compared to what we are seeing in the poorer countries. Plus, we will take a look at the riots in the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere, which is Haiti, and we'll take a look at a perceived good old-fashioned government cover-up. Here are the details.
Between 2007 and early 2008, food prices have risen a dramatic 40%, as close to 40 countries are facing food emergencies. And since 1 billion people live on less than $1 a day, it's understandable why these price increases are having disastrous effects. And some of the worst price jumps is on the essential foods. As of March 2008, average world wheat prices skyrocketed 130% above their level a year earlier. Soy prices were 87% higher, rice had jumped 74%, and eggs escalated to 40%. And because that is essentially the basic diet of the developing countries, they can't really cut back.
When you get to food, it's a question of resiliency. So for those who make 50 cents or $1 a day, what do they cut? They've already cut everything. They've cut education, they've cut health care, they've cut housing expenses, and they're down to filling a couple bowls of rice a day or getting a loaf of bread. So there's nowhere for them to go.
And the problem gets worse when you find how little food can be bought with the average amount of money made per day.
A 2-kilogram bag of rice, like this, now consumes about half of the daily income of a poor family.
There are a handful of factors that experts are attributing for the food crisis. They include droughts in major wheat-producing countries back in 2006, like in Australia, escalating oil prices, an increase in meat consumption in stronger developing countries such as China and India, expanding occurrences of extreme weather, and most importantly, biofuels. In an effort to decrease emissions of greenhouse gases and reduce their dependence on imported oil, developed countries are using corn and maize crops to create biofuels. The most known is ethanol. The shameful thing is that ethanol hasn't lowered gas prices, but it has swelled food prices.
While many are worrying about filling their gas tanks, many others around the world are struggling to fill their stomachs.
The dispute is that the American government claims that plant-derived fuels make up only 3% in the rise of food prices, but a leaked confidential World Bank report has that percent pegged at a much higher 75%. Sources close to the discussions believe the report has been covered up to avoid embarrassing former U.S. President George W. Bush, since the document would throw a huge pitchfork into the ethanol cause.
We found women making food, though nothing we would think of as edible.
This is the most extraordinary example of what very, very poor people will do to get anything to eat, because this is the raw material they're using. This isn't a grain of any sort. This is fine earth or sand, for all intents and purposes. What they're doing is mixing it with water, some butter, a little bit of salt to make this. Effectively, mud pie mix.
Baked dry by the sun, they have almost no nutritional value. But for children who hadn't eaten all day, they filled their stomach and fended off hunger.
Quite possibly no country has been hurt more by the jump in food expenses than Haiti. With 80% of the people already impoverished, they responded with riots that resulted in the deaths of 6 Haitians and a UN peacekeeper. After President Rien Preval revealed a plan to cut the price of rice by 15%, the 16 senators in the upper house of parliament voted unanimously to oust Prime Minister Jacques-Edouard Alexis from his job. Keep in mind the senators from his own party abstained from voting. Solving this problem, which has put 100 million more people into hunger, isn't clear-cut. For one, the higher prices mean that the given food aid is helping far less.
4 months ago, a metric ton of rice cost the cost was $400. Now we had to pay $1,100 for the same amount of food.
$400 up to $1,100.
$1,100 in a few months, in 4 to 5 months. We'll try to assist them. Maybe we'll have to cut down the rations, or maybe we will just have to reduce the number of beneficiaries, which both solutions are not very good for these people.
Additionally, the poorer countries can't really help themselves because they have had structural adjustment policies, or SAPs, imposed on them. This was put in place to ensure debt repayment actually happened. But what occurred was money that could have been spent pulling their citizens out of poverty was instead spent on repaying the debt and other economic policies. So as you can see, because the countries can't help themselves, more foreign aid is needed. Currently, prices of food has dropped, but certainly not to the pre-2007 levels. The reasoning is the financial crisis. However, the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization warned against a false sense of security, mentioning that the credit crisis could cause farmers to lower their plantings. And this remains a dire circumstance, because developed countries are more worried about saving their own economy than increasing their food aid. So don't expect this issue to fly away anytime soon.